It was a typical Thursday evening at our place, nestled on the outskirts of a sprawling city. Tom and I had settled into our usual routine, him with a beer in hand, lounging on the couch after a long day at his auto repair shop, and me, Nora, eyes glued to my laptop, tracking the latest stock and cryptocurrency trends. Our home, a cozy two-story we picked out for its promise of family and future, now felt more like a battleground for our increasingly divergent lives. "So, how was the market today?" Tom asked, his tone casual, but I sensed the underlying tension. It had become our norm. "Same as always, ups and downs." "Crypto's looking good, though," I replied, trying to keep the peace. Tom scoffed, setting his beer down with a little too much force. "Crypto, again? You know, not everything that glitters is gold, Nora." I sighed, closing my laptop, bracing for the conversation we'd had countless times. "And not every car that comes into your shop is worth fixing, but you do it anyway, because you see the value in it." "Why can't you see the value in what I'm doing?" "Because cars are real, Nora. You can touch them, fix them, sell them. What you're doing, throwing our money at the wind, hoping it'll fly back with more, it's just reckless." I felt the anger bubble up, the same old argument wearing thin. "Reckless? It's not reckless, Tom. It's calculated. There's a difference between gambling and investing. I wish you'd try to understand that." Tom stood up, pacing now. "Calculated? You call putting our hard-earned money into something as volatile as cryptocurrency calculated?" "Yes, I do, because I don't go in blind. I research, I study trends, I make informed decisions. It's no different from what you do with your shop." "My shop is a sure thing, Nora. People always need car repairs. But this? This is just a phase. What happens when it crashes, huh? What then? We could lose money in any investment, Tom. The shop could falter. Nothing's guaranteed. But we've seen good returns on my investments. Isn't that worth something?" Tom stopped pacing, running a hand through his hair in frustration. "It's not just about the money, Nora. It's about security, about not risking everything on a damn coin flip. Why can't we invest more in the shop, expand it? That's a real, tangible way to grow our money. And put all our eggs in one basket? What if something happens to the shop, Tom? Diversification is key. That's investing 101. He shook his head, the gap between our perspectives as vast as ever. "Diversification, sure. But into something stable, not this digital fairy dust." I stood up now, feeling the need to defend my choices, my independence. "You know, for someone who runs his own business, you're surprisingly close-minded. And you're surprisingly stubborn," he shot back. "All I'm saying is, we could be using that money to build something lasting, something we can see and touch, not just numbers on a screen." The conversation was going nowhere, as usual. "Let's just agree to disagree, okay? I won't criticize how you run your shop, and you don't criticize my investments." Tom sighed, the fight draining from him. "Fine. But just remember, Nora, when all this blows up in your face, don't say I didn't warn you." The tension between Tom and me wasn't the only strain in our lives. His family dynamics added another layer of complexity. Living close to his parents and sister meant frequent interactions, each one a reminder of our differing views on family and responsibility. It was a Sunday afternoon when Tom suggested we visit his parents. The idea alone made my stomach knot. It wasn't the parents I minded, it was Sarah, Tom's sister. Her lifestyle and choices were a constant source of bewilderment to me. "Come on, Nora, it's been ages since we've seen them. And Mum's been asking about you. And more. You know Dad is fighting cancer." Tom pressed, noticing my hesitation. "Yeah, I bet Sarah's missed me too," I muttered, my sarcasm not lost on Tom. "Look, I know you two don't see eye to eye, but can't you just—" "I don't know, try? For me?" Sighing, I agreed. "Fine, but I'm not staying if she starts on one of her shopping spree stories." We arrived to find Sarah already there, flaunting her latest designer bag. The air of superiority she carried like a perfume instantly grated on me. "Look at this, just got it yesterday. Isn't it just fabulous?" she gushed, barely acknowledging our presence. "It's something," I managed to say, biting my tongue. Tom's mother, oblivious to the tension, ushered us in. "Nora, dear, so glad you could make it. You two should visit more often." The afternoon dragged on, with Sarah dominating the conversation, recounting her latest vacation and shopping exploits. I tried to keep a neutral face, engaging in minimal conversation, but my patience was wearing thin. "So, Nora, still playing with your stocks and bits?" Sarah sneered, her tone dripping with disdain. "It's called investing, Sarah. You should try it sometime instead of blowing through money on things you don't need." I shot back, my annoyance breaking through. Tom shot me a warning look, but it was too late. Sarah scoffed. "Investing? Please, like gambling on the internet is anything to brag about. At least when I spend my money, I have something to show for it." "Something to show until it goes out of fashion next season," I retorted, unable to help myself. "That's enough, both of you," Tom's father interjected, his tone stern. "We're here to enjoy each other's company, not to argue about whatever this is." The rest of the visit passed in an uncomfortable silence. As we left, Tom couldn't hold back his frustration. "Nora, why do you have to provoke her? Can't you just let it go for one afternoon?" "Me? Provoke her? She's the one who started it with her snide remarks. I'm just not going to sit there and take it, Tom. It's just, sometimes I wish you'd try a little harder, for the sake of peace." "Try harder?" "Tom, I'm not the one splurging on luxuries and then flaunting them in everyone's face. Why doesn't anyone tell her to stop acting like a spoiled brat?" "Because she's family, Nora. We look out for each other, even if we don't always agree with what they're doing." "That's just it, Tom. Looking out for each other is one thing, but enabling bad behavior is another. There's a difference, and it's about time someone pointed it out to her." Tom sighed, the weariness evident in his voice. I know. But what can we do? She's set in her ways, and Mom and Dad aren't going to change how they treat her. It's not just about Sarah, Tom. It's about us, too. How are we supposed to plan for our future when there's always going to be this financial black hole in your family? "We'll figure it out, Nora. We always do." The news hit us hard and fast. Tom's dad, Mr. Harrison, had lost his battle with cancer. It felt like one moment we were discussing treatment options, and the next, we were plunged into mourning. Amidst the shock and grief, Sarah, Tom's sister, took charge of the funeral arrangements. It wasn't long before she dropped a bombshell on us about the cost. Sitting in our living room, looking like a storm cloud had settled over his head, Tom relayed what Sarah had told him. "Nora, Sarah says the funeral's gonna cost $60,000. She's expecting us to chip in half." I nearly choked on my tea. $60,000? Tom, that's insane. Are we funding a funeral or a royal wedding here? Tom's face darkened, his eyes narrowing. Now's not the time, Nora. This isn't about the money. It's about giving my dad the send-off he deserves. But $60,000? There has to be a mistake. It's too much. Too much? Tom's voice rose, and I could see the vein in his forehead starting to pulse. My dad has just died, Nora. And here you are, haggling over pennies. What's wrong with you? I flinched at his harshness. I'm not haggling, Tom. I'm just shocked. We never even spent that kind of money on our own house. Tom stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. You know what? I don't need this. I don't need you telling me what's too much for my own father's funeral. If you can't see past your damn spreadsheets for once, maybe you should just stay out of it. The hurt from his words cut deep, but I swallowed my retort. This was grief talking, not my Tom. I'm sorry, Tom. I'll transfer the $30,000 to Sarah. It's just, this is a lot to process. Tom paced the room, hands buried in his hair, a gesture of frustration I'd come to recognize over the years. Yeah, well, it's not just about the money, Nora. It's about doing right by him. And if that means paying whatever it costs, then so be it. When I confirmed the transfer to Sarah, Tom barely acknowledged it, lost in his own world of grief and anger. The distance between us felt like miles, not the few feet of our living room. Walking into the funeral agency, I felt the weight of the world on my shoulders. The last few days had been a blur of grief and confusion, but nothing could have prepared me for what I was about to learn. I'm here for Mr. Harrison's funeral, I announced to the woman behind the counter, trying to keep my voice steady. She looked up from her computer, her expression apologetic. I'm sorry, ma'am, but you're a day late. Mr. Harrison was cremated yesterday. My heart stopped. What? But, how? I was told the funeral was today. She shook her head gently, her eyes full of sympathy. The family requested to move the date forward. I'm very sorry for your loss and the confusion. I stood there, dumbfounded, my mind racing. How could Tom not tell me? Why was I left in the dark about such a significant change? Fuming, I dialed Tom's number, my fingers shaking with anger and disbelief. Tom, why the hell didn't you tell me the funeral was moved? I just showed up like an idiot, only to find out I missed everything. Tom's voice was cold, detached. Because I didn't think you cared, Nora. All you've done is complain about the costs and question every decision. Why would I think you'd want to be there? Because he was my father-in-law. Because I'm your wife. How could you just exclude me like that? My voice cracked, a mixture of hurt and fury. Well, maybe not for long, he shot back, and I could almost hear the bitterness seeping through the phone. What's that supposed to mean? I demanded, my heart sinking. I'm done, Nora. I can't do this anymore. I can't be with someone who's so indifferent. You're more concerned with your bitcoins and shares than with this family. I've got the divorce papers ready. His words were like a slap in the face. Divorce? Was he serious? You're kidding, right? Over this? Tom, we can talk about it, we can work things out. No, Nora. It's too late. The house is going up for sale. We'll split everything and go our separate ways. That's it. I was speechless, the reality of the situation crashing down on me. This wasn't happening. It couldn't be. Stunned, I wandered back to the parking lot, where I saw Sarah pulling in, driving a brand new luxury car. The sight of it made my blood boil. Nice car, Sarah. Where'd you get the money for this? Inheritance? Her smile didn't reach her eyes as she tossed her hair back. Yeah, something like that. Dad left me a little something. The casual way she mentioned her father, with shopping bags in her hands and not a trace of sadness on her face, was infuriating. A little something, huh? Looks like morning is treating you pretty well. Sarah's smile faded, replaced by a smirk. Well, we all grieve in our own ways, don't we? Some of us invest in stocks, and some of us in cars. I clenched my fists, the injustice of it all burning inside me. This was all wrong. Tom and I were falling apart, and here was Sarah, benefiting from the chaos. Enjoy the car, Sarah. Looks like it cost a pretty penny. Or should I say, a pretty dollar? She laughed, a hollow sound that echoed in the empty parking lot. Oh, Nora, always so concerned about the money. Don't worry, it's all been taken care of. I watched her walk away, her laughter lingering in the air. The man I loved wanted nothing to do with me, and the family I had tried to be a part of was showing their true colors. The days following the funeral felt like navigating through a thick fog of disbelief and betrayal. The weight of the divorce papers in my bag felt like carrying a boulder, a constant reminder of my crumbling marriage. But the sight of Sarah's new luxury car planted a seed of suspicion that I couldn't shake off. Determined to get to the bottom of it, I decided to pay a visit to the funeral home, hoping to uncover some answers. Walking into the funeral home, a mix of suspicion and determination fueled my steps. It felt surreal, being here under these circumstances, but I needed answers. The place was quiet, the air filled with a solemnity fitting its purpose. At the reception, I recognized a face from the past: Jackie, a classmate from high school who'd ended up in the most unexpected of places. "Jackie!" I exclaimed, a bit too loudly for the setting. "I didn't know you worked here." She looked up, surprise flickering across her face, before recognition set in. "Nora? Wow, it's been ages. What brings you here? Something I can help with?" I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the conversation ahead. "Yeah, actually. It's about my father-in-law's funeral. I heard it was arranged here." Jackie's expression turned professional, but there was a hint of curiosity in her eyes. "Sure, let me pull up the details. Give me a sec." As she typed away, I fidgeted, the weight of the situation pressing down on me. The moment she found the record, her brows furrowed. "Okay, here it is." The service was pretty standard. Cremation was requested, keeping things on the simpler side. The total came to $5,000. My heart sank. $5,000? But that's not what we were told. We paid $60,000, or at least, we were led to believe that's what it cost. Jackie paused, her face a mask of concern. "That's a huge difference. It was Sarah who handled the arrangements, right? Everything here was billed at $5,000, no more." The pieces were starting to fit together, a picture I didn't want to see. "Can you print me a copy of that bill? I need proof." "Sure thing," Jackie said, her tone sympathetic. She quickly printed out a duplicate of the check and handed it to me. Holding the paper, it felt like a piece of a puzzle that would unravel a bigger deception. "Thanks, Jackie. I've got to sort this out." Armed with the printout from the funeral home, my next stop was confronting the family, particularly Sarah. The air felt heavy as I drove to my mother-in-law's house, where I knew they'd all be gathered, probably discussing the estate and the aftermath of the funeral. My stomach churned with a mix of dread and determination. When I arrived, the house was eerily quiet. I hesitated at the door, gathering my courage before stepping inside. The sound of my footsteps seemed to echo through the hallway, announcing my arrival. In the living room, Tom, Sarah, and my mother-in-law were seated, looking like a picture of mourning that was about to be shattered. My mother-in-law, her eyes shadowed with grief, broke the silence first. "Dear, we missed you yesterday at the funeral. We thought you'd be there." Taking a deep breath, I replied, "I was told it was today." "I'm so sorry for your loss," my voice steady, despite the churn of emotions inside me. I then turned to Tom. "Can we talk? In private?" I hoped to spare his mother any more distress. Tom's response cut through the room. "No secrets here. You're not part of this family anymore, remember?" His words stung, but I pushed on, pulling out the check from the funeral home. "Then explain this to me. The funeral cost $5,000, not the $60,000, Sarah claimed. Where did the rest go?" Tom looked genuinely shocked, turning to Sarah with a bewildered, "What's this about?" Sarah squirmed under our gazes. I needed the money," she finally admitted, her voice small. The revelation seemed to hang in the air until Tom's mom, overhearing, added, "Your father saved for his own farewell. I even gave Sarah $10,000 more to cover everything." I did the math out loud, tension rising. $70,000 in total, and only $5,000 spent. "Sarah, where's the rest?" Flustered, Sarah confessed to splurging the money on a new car for herself, her gaze darting away, unable to meet mine. I expected Tom to explode, but instead, he almost tenderly told Sarah, "You shouldn't have done that. Be more careful next time." His response floored me. Careful? She committed fraud, Tom. And you're okay with that? Tom's justification left me reeling. You wouldn't understand. You've got no family, you don't get what it means to stick together. That was the last straw. In front of them all, I signed the divorce papers with a flourish. Sarah, you owe me $30,000. Pay up, or I'm going to the police. Tom's protests followed me out the door, but I didn't look back. I'd seen enough, heard enough. The betrayal was complete, and so was my resolve. As I walked away, the finality of my actions settled in. There was no going back, only forward from here, away from the lies and the deceit that had marred what I once thought of as family. Packing up my life into boxes felt surreal, like I was an observer in my own story. The for sale sign outside the house was a stark reminder of the finality of it all. By afternoon, I was settling into a small apartment that felt more like a fresh start than a downgrade. That evening, as I was sorting through the remnants of my past life, my phone rang. Tom's name flashed on the screen, a name I no longer felt attached to. I answered, curiosity edging out resentment. Nora, you need to back off, Sarah. Tom's voice came through, tinged with an uncharacteristic harshness. Back off? I laughed, cold and sharp. Not a chance, Tom. She took from me, and I want it back. Your sister's a thief. Tom was silent for a moment. She's family. You wouldn't understand. Family? I scoffed. That ship has sailed, Tom. As far as I'm concerned, you and your sister are just people I used to know. He tried to argue, but I cut him off. Save it. Sarah has 2 weeks to return my money, or I'm pressing charges. And you? Stay out of it. You're nothing to me now. Hanging up, I felt a mix of sadness and liberation. The man I once loved was now just another obstacle in my path to reclaiming my life. 2 weeks later, a knock at my door heralded the return of my $30,000. Sarah stood there, her posture defiant, a sneer playing on her lips. Here's your money, she spat, thrusting an envelope into my hands. Happy now, you money-grubbing witch? I took the envelope, my gaze steady. It's not about the money, Sarah. It's about principle. About not letting you walk all over people. She laughed, hollow and bitter. Whatever helps you sleep at night. As she turned to leave, I called out. Just remember, Sarah. Karma's a real pain. What goes around, comes around. Closing the door, I leaned against it, the envelope heavy in my hand. The money was a small victory, but the real win was standing up for myself, refusing to be a victim of their greed and lies. Life had found a new rhythm, calmer and more predictable, when out of the blue, my phone rang, displaying a number I hadn't seen in a while. It was Tom, a voice from a past I had neatly folded away. Hey, I need a favor. A big one. Tom's voice sounded more worn than I remembered. I paused, the suddenness of the call throwing me. A favor? Tom, we're past favors, don't you think? It's Sarah. She's in deep this time. Debt's up to her eyeballs, and the wolves are at the door. We've sold everything, the house, the shop, it's still not enough. His words took a moment to sink in. And you're calling me why? I'm not part of this circus anymore, Tom. He sighed, a sound of desperation. Come on, don't be like that. You got out, made it big with your trading. Can't you spare something, for old time's sake? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. After everything, he still saw me as a lifeline for their mess. Spare something? For her? After she nearly ruined us with her lies? You've got some nerve, Tom. It's not just for her. It's for all of us. You wouldn't be where you are without me. Don't forget that, he countered, his voice edged with bitterness. A laugh, sharp and short, escaped me. Where I am is despite you, not because of you. You think I owe you? That's rich. There was silence on the line, heavy and uncomfortable. So, that's it then? You're going to turn your back on us? Us? There is no us Tom. There hasn't been for a long time. And as for turning my back, I think you've got me confused with someone who still cares. Hanging up, I felt a mix of emotions. Anger, yes, but also relief. That chapter of my life was truly closed now. Sitting in the living room of my new house, a place I had earned with my sweat and smarts, I realized how far I had come. This was my sanctuary, built not on the shaky grounds of deceit and manipulation, but on my resilience and hard work.